Hello there. I'm really glad you came here tonight. Maybe inside you, there's something you've been carrying, something without a clear name, a memory from long ago, a moment that has already passed, yet still quietly shapes the way you breathe, the way you sleep, the way you rest with yourself. Night has a gentle truth. It doesn't ask you to be strong, doesn't ask you to forget, doesn't demand that you move on before you're ready. Night only wants you to set the weight down for a little while, just a little. The moonlight is laying a soft glow across your room, a color gentle enough for the things you've held too long to finally be allowed to loosen. You don't have to hold everything tonight. You don't have to blame yourself for what already happened. You don't have to pretend you're okay when your heart is tired. Tonight, well, talk about letting go. Not letting go of a person, not erasing the past, but letting go of the way you keep gripping old stories as if releasing them would cause you to fall apart. And if these next few moments help your heart feel just a little lighter, you can only, if you want, subscribe to the channel or leave a small message to let me know you're here. For now, take a slow breath and let the night open gently before you. If you're ready, I'd like to invite you to walk with me down a small path that lies quietly within this soft night. This path leads to a very still lake where the moon stretches itself into a smooth silver ribbon across the water. Just a few steps more, and you'll see an old wooden boat waiting for you, quiet, like a piece of your own memory. Let your feet move slowly along that path and allow tonight's story to begin gently. On the northern hill above the town of Willowbend, there lies an old lake people call Memory Lake. Not because it holds any magic, but because sitting beside its water often brings back old stories we thought we had forgotten. Stories that rise gently, like mist from the edge of the shore. Evenings here are very quiet. Quiet enough that you can hear a single leaf touching the surface, or the sound of wind slipping past your ear, like a whisper from something that is slowly walking away. That day, Master Arthur, an old American monk who lived in a wooden cabin near the forest, brought a young student to the lake. The student's name was Mason. a boy carrying many unfinished feelings and memories that would not let him sleep. Mason sat down at the water's edge, his eyes looking outward, but his mind falling inward toward the things he didn't want to face. "Do you know why I brought you here?" Master Arthur asked, his voice low, like wind passing through pine trees. Mason shook his head. The master pointed at the water. "This lake holds many stories of old souls. But do you know the most interesting part? None of those stories stay forever. A soft breeze passed by. Small waves spread into gentle rings, the way someone breathes when they're crying and calming down at the same time. On the shore, an old wooden boat was tied with a fraying rope. Its wood was weathered, softened by time, yet it still rested there with the gentleness of something that had carried many tired hearts through many long nights. Master Arthur stepped into the boat and held its side, motioning for Mason to join him. "Master," Mason whispered, "I keep remembering the old things. Sometimes they feel like they're pulling me down. I know I should let go, but I just can't." The waves brushed the side of the boat, slow, rhythmic, as if comforting something inside him. Master Arthur didn't reply immediately. He lowered the oar into the water, and the boat drifted away from the shore, just far enough for the open water to make them feel small beneath a soft, dark sky. Tonight, the water was not smooth like a mirror. It trembled slightly as the hill's wind drifted across. "Mason," the master said, "do you see the waves?" "Yes," Mason answered. "Did the waves appear because of you?" "No, they came because of the wind." The master nodded. "Memories are the same. They appear when the wind inside you shifts. Not because you called them, not because you're weak, not because you want to hurt." Mason looked down and saw his reflection ripple softly on the moving water. The master continued, "You suffer not because memories come. You suffer because you believe you must do something with them, hold them, explain them, fight them, or fix them." He touched the water with his hand. A ripple widened outward, making their shadows soften and sway. But look, he said, a wave is just a wave. A memory is just a memory. It comes and it goes. Master Arthur tapped lightly on the side of the boat. This, he said, is you. Mason ran his fingers over the wood and felt the cracks, the worn spots, the places where the sun and rain had changed its texture. These marks, the master said, are not there because the boat is broken. They are there because it once carried someone through big waves. Mason stayed silent. But this silence was gentler than before. Your wounds, the master whispered, don't make you less. They simply show that you have loved, lost, tried, endured, and lived. The breeze brushed Mason's hair. No one asks a boat to erase its marks in order to keep floating. And no one asks you to erase your past in order to keep living. Master Arthur turned the oar slightly, letting the boat move into a patch of water, reflecting the moon. Mason, he said, the most painful part of your memory. What do you think it came for? Mason lowered his head. I don't know. All I know is it broke me. The master looked at the moonlit water, its reflection trembling gently with each wave. No wave intends to crash into the shore, he said. It simply follows the wind. He pointed to the sky. And everything that happened to you did not come to destroy you. It came to push you somewhere you have not yet seen. Mason frowned. But why can't I see that place? Because you're still holding your pain like a heavy stone in the boat. When you set it down, your boat becomes light. Light enough to let you see where you are being carried. Master Arthur rested the oar inside the boat. He stopped rowing. He let the water carry them. Letting go, he said, does not mean erasing a memory. Letting go means not rowing back into it. The boat drifted. Not fast, not forced, like the heart of someone beginning to trust that they can still move forward. You cannot change the past, the master said, but you can let it float with the current. not to forget it. But so it no longer decides every step you take. A soft breeze passed. The waves turned the boat slightly, just enough for Mason to lift his eyes toward the sky. The master spoke slowly. Everything that happens has a reason. But you can only see that reason when you stop clinging to what has already passed. When the boat drifted back toward the shore, Mason stepped onto the ground, his feet sinking into the soft earth as if he were standing there for the very first time. He looked at the lake, still trembling with tiny waves, but inside him, something was no longer shaking. Mason, the master said softly, the past is not something to hold. It is something meant to float away. And in that moment, Mason understood. Memories are not a place to live inside. They are a place to look at, and then to move beyond. There is a small courtyard behind an old wooden house where every afternoon the wind blows just enough to make the whole space feel one breath lighter. In that courtyard stands an old maple tree. Every year, around this time, its leaves begin to change from green to pale yellow to deep red and finally to warm browns, soft like the feelings inside us that have reached their final chapter. One afternoon, a single leaf released itself from a branch. No sound, no tremor, no dramatic moment. It simply knew it was time. The wind lifted it gently, turning it in one slow circle, a quiet farewell, before letting it fall to the ground below. And the beautiful part wasn't the moment it left the branch. It was the way it fell. Soft, unresisting, without regret. It simply followed the path that belonged to it. If you look closely, you will notice that leaf once lived a full season of green. It was part of summer. It held warm winds. It cast shade for long, bright days. But when a new season arrived, The leaf didn't ask, "Why must I fall? I want to stay. I'm scared to change." It didn't cling to the branch with the strength it had left. It didn't grip or tighten or struggle. It let go because it understood that falling was part of its natural story. And strangely, that surrender made its path downward so beautiful that nothing else could replace it. Humans, though, we are different. When something in our life reaches its final page, our hearts tremble. We hold on. We cling. We invent countless reasons to keep something that has already left us. An old relationship, a dream that changed shape, a person who moved on, a chapter we once believed would last forever. We hold because we fear emptiness. We fear the unknown. We fear losing a piece of ourselves. But you know, the leaf does not fall because it is weak. It falls because it has completed its time on the branch. And the thing you are trying so hard to hold, that too has completed its role in your story. Not everything that leaves is a loss. Some things leave because you have grown past them. Some leave because you are no longer in that season. Some leave because they must return to a place you cannot follow. The wind blows again. Another leaf falls, slow as the breath of night. If you pay attention, you'll notice something. Not a single leaf falls with fear. They simply follow the path that wind, time, and nature have prepared for them. They know the ground beneath is not an ending, but a transition. And months from now, those very leaves will become soft earth, nourishing the next young buds that will rise in spring. Letting go is not the end. letting go is the middle chapter of something new. If there is something in your heart that has reached its time to fall, you don't need to tear it out. You don't need to force yourself to forget. You don't need to pretend to be strong tonight. You only need to let it fall the way that leaf did, slowly, naturally, without drama, without pressure. And one day, you will see that what you released has become rich soil, the gentle ground from which something new in you will quietly begin to grow. Morning in the small village always began before the sun truly woke up, not with cars, not with people calling to each other, but with the smell of rising bread coming from Evelyn's oven. The baker who had grown used to waking at the hour when the sky was still as dark blue as night. She opened the oven softly, and the warm golden light inside spread outward like the quiet warmth of someone who had lived through many lonely seasons, yet still kept a small tenderness inside her chest. On the wooden table, round pieces of dough were breathing slowly. You could watch them rise, bit by bit, like hearts, opening at exactly the right moment. Dough, Evelyn used to say, never rises quickly. Before its time arrives. The words were simple as breathing. Yet it took her many years to understand them fully. There was a time when Evelyn loved someone deeply and fiercely. One morning, without warning, he left. No goodbye. No promise. Not even one last embrace. He simply reached the final page of their story and walked away as quietly as a dawn, without mist. Back then, the pain was so strong, Evelyn thought her heart might never rise again. Like dough, overworked by too much kneading, with no air left, no strength remaining. But every morning, the oven taught her one truth. Everything in life follows a rhythm, rising, baking, and leaving. You cannot keep bread in the oven because you're afraid the customer will arrive late. You cannot keep a person who has reached the part of their journey where they must go. You cannot keep love simply because you want it to stay. The only thing she could do was keep the oven warm so her heart would not grow cold from loss. This morning, a man stood outside the bakery. He was Evelyn's old neighbor, and he had just lost the wife had spent years beside. His eyes were swollen, the kind of swollen that comes from crying all night and still not feeling done. When Evelyn opened the door, he gave a small smile, a sad one, thin and fragile, like the first light fading across a pale sky. I didn't know what to do this morning, he said softly, so I came here. She loved your honey bread. Evelyn paused. Then she guided him inside without asking anything. Some forms of pain don't need words. They only need a place to sit down. She placed a fresh loaf into his hands. Its warmth seeped through his palms like a quiet comfort. He stared at the bread, and his voice broke. Why does everything leave so quickly? Evelyn rested her hand on the table, not touching him, but close enough for the oven's warmth to feel like a distant embrace. You know, she said softly, bread leaves the oven, not because it wants to go, but because it is done. It has completed its part. And this morning, he lifted his head, eyes red but deep. And people? He asked. Evelyn looked toward the glowing oven. We're the same, she whispered. Everyone who leaves our life has completed their part too. Not to leave emptiness, but to leave meaning for the road ahead. She breathed out gently. No one leaves while they're still unfinished. Maybe we don't understand the reason yet, but life does. The man nodded quietly, like someone opening a small door inside their heart that they hadn't dared touch for a long time. From the oven, the bread began releasing its scent. Warm, sweet, and strangely similar to the feeling of pain beginning to heal from the inside out. Loss, Evelyn continued, is not the same as losing. Loss is the moment. Your heart stretches wide enough to hold something new. She placed another warm loaf in front of him. Just like rising dough, it grows because of the empty spaces inside. If you placed your hand near that warmth, you would feel a truth this life keeps repeating. It is not asking you to be strong immediately. It is only asking you not to shut your oven, not to let your heart grow cold because of sorrow. Everything that happens in your life has a reason. And sometimes that reason comes slowly, as slowly as rising dough, quietly changing its shape in the stillness of an early morning. The field and the farmer who lost his wife. On the outskirts of the town of Riverbend lay a wide open field where spring always arrived a little early and autumn stayed a little longer than anywhere else. It was the field of Joan, a gentle farmer, admired by everyone in the village. Joan used to grow wheat, but in recent years, he had begun planting lavender as well, the flower his wife, Emily, adored. Every blooming season, Emily would run through the purple rose like a child released into her own violet sky. But this year, the field held no laughter. Emily had left Joan in a sudden illness, so sudden that even nature hadn't had time to change its season. Joan spent the whole winter inside his wooden shed, never stepping out to the field. Everything in him grew cold, like soil untouched by sunlight. When early spring brushed the grass, the villagers began preparing their seeds. Everyone hoped Joan would return to his field, but he remained in his small wooden house, staring out at the emptiness that once held his joy. One afternoon, Master Arthur, the monk Joan respected deeply, came to visit him. Without saying much, the master walked to the field and sat down on the earth. Joan followed reluctantly. He stood beside him as the master scooped up a handful of soft soil. "Joan," the master said, "do you know what a seed needs to sprout?" Joan sighed. "Water, sunlight, good earth." The master nodded. "Yes, but you're forgetting the most important thing." Joan looked at him, waiting. "The seed must break." He spoke slowly, as though speaking of something most people avoid facing. No seed can ever sprout while trying to remain exactly what it once was. He placed a seed into Joan's palm. "This seed looks small and peaceful," he said. "But do you know what happens the moment it's placed in the ground?" Joan shook his head, even though he knew the answer. Still, the master continued, "Because some truths must be heard from someone else's voice. It will crack. It will split open. It will become something that is no longer what it used to be. And in that moment, life begins." Joan stared at the seed in his hand, as though seeing a piece of his own broken heart. The master continued, "Everything new in life comes not from what remains whole, but from what has broken. A breeze moved through the field, bringing with it the smell of wet earth and the evening bird's calls." Joan closed his eyes. For a brief moment, he saw Emily again, standing in the lavender rose long ago, lifting bunches of purple blooms with her gentle hands. "I don't understand," Joan whispered. "How can loss ever create life?" Master Arthur cupped another handful of soil and let it fall between his fingers. "Joan," he said softly, "when Emily was here with you, you lived through love. Now that she is gone, you are learning to live through the meaning of that love." Joan opened his eyes. "Meaning?" he asked quietly. The master nodded. "A person may leave, but what they leave behind never truly goes. The love you shared with Emily is not lost. It is simply seeking a new form so it can continue to live. Master Arthur stood up and handed Joan a small cloth bag filled with lavender seeds. "Will you plant them?" he asked gently. Joan swallowed hard, his eyes stinging, as though the wind carried dust. "I'm afraid," he whispered, "afraid to see the field bloom without Emily." The master rested a hand on his shoulder. "Joan, the field does not bloom to remind you of what you lost. It blooms to remind you that love still exists." Joan knelt down for the first time since Emily died and placed his hands into the soil. The ground was cool, soft. It did not judge his pain. It did not ask for explanations. He placed one seed down, then another, then a whole handful. Each falling seed felt like a tear finding its place to dissolve. The master watched silently. After a long time, Joan whispered, "If the seed must break to grow, then maybe my heart must too." The master nodded, his eyes heavy but warm. "Yes. And when it opens, you will see that Emily never truly left you." Imagine you're standing in a wide, open field on a cool afternoon. The kind of afternoon where the wind doesn't rush but moves past you like someone walking gently through a peaceful dream. In your hand, there is a tiny seed, so small you might not feel it at all unless you look down. It is warm. It is quiet. It is here. And somehow, you've been holding it far longer than you realized. Maybe you once thought, if I hold it tightly, it will stay safe. But like so many things in life, a seed only grows when it is placed in the place it truly belongs. One, the things we hold for too long. You look at the seed in your hand and suddenly recognize you've been holding it the same way we hold the things that have already passed, a promise left unfinished, a feeling you never spoke aloud, a dream that paused halfway, a person no longer here, a chapter that ended long ago. We hold on because we fear. Letting go equals losing. But the truth is, holding too tightly is exactly what keeps it from becoming what it needs to become. Just like this seed, if it stays in your palm forever, it will never bloom. 2. The wind comes exactly when it must. A breeze arrives, soft, gentle, not trying to take anything from you, just passing through, because that is what wind does. The wind doesn't know what you're thinking, what you're holding, or how heavy it has felt inside your heart. It simply passes. As it touches your open palm, the seed trembles a little, just enough for you to sense it wants to leave the place. You've grown used to keeping it. In that moment, you understand something. Many things in life once looked like loss, but were actually the beginning of a continuation. 3. The seed leaves your hand. You open your palm, not to throw anything away, not to prove you're strong, but simply to stop standing in the way. The wind reaches the seed, and in the most natural way, it lifts, spins once, and begins its journey. You watch it, not with pain, not with regret, but with a quiet stillness that comes from knowing you've done the right thing. The seed doesn't fall immediately. The wind carries it farther, higher, toward a place where the soil is soft enough for it to open. And what you let go of was never the seed itself. You only released the act of holding. 4. Letting go equals allowing it to live in its own way. Some things, when kept in your hands, are nothing more than memories, old hurts, emotions that no longer know where to rest. But when you allow them to leave, not erase, not forget, just not hold anymore, they become part of the world in a different way. A lesson, a beautiful memory, a foundation for your growth, a quiet gift, a piece of who you'll become, just like the seed. Only when it leaves your hand does it gain the chance to become life. 5. The field is never empty when you let go. Many people fear letting go because they believe letting go equals emptiness. But a field is never truly empty. Even when your eyes see nothing, the soil is still breathing, warming, preparing for something new. What you release never disappears into nothingness. It becomes a seed, becomes earth, becomes wind, becomes gentle light. You will notice when the new season arrives, letting go is not an ending. Letting go is clearing the path for what comes next. Story: The Rain and Little Lila. Afternoons in the small village of Willow Bend often brought sudden rain. No warning. No clear sign. The sky simply grew heavier, and the rain began to fall, lightly at first, as if nature were reminding everyone to slow down just a little. That day was the same. The hill wind moved through the trees, carrying a hint of cold moisture, and rain poured over the village. Not much, not hurried, just enough to erase the noise from the road. Old Marin, the elderly woman who lived at the end of the slope, sat beneath her porch roof on her wooden chair. A chair as old as the stories she used to tell. In her hands, a half-finished knitted scarf. Her knitting was not fast nor precise, but each stitch carried the quiet calm of someone who had lived long enough to understand that life never rushes. As the rain thickened, she heard small footsteps rushing up the path. It was Lila, the little girl from next door. Grandma Marin. Lila cried, breathless. I got caught in the rain. Why did it have to come right now? Why didn't it wait until I got home? Old Marin chuckled softly, a warm sound like firewood cracking gently. Rain doesn't wait for anyone, sweetheart. It comes when it needs to. Lila pouted. But now I'm all wet. The old woman waved her closer. Come sit with me under the porch. Lila sat down beside her. Rain fell in front of them, drawing tiny silver lines on the darkened earth. I hate when rain comes at the wrong time, Lila complained. Old Marin tilted her head. The wrong time for whom? For me, Lila muttered. Marin smiled gently, watching the rainwater slip across the yard. So the whole sky, she said softly, must rearrange its schedule for one little 8-year-old girl running home? Lila laughed despite herself, though she was still a little annoyed. But I'm wet, she whispered. Yes, Marin said, brushing a hand through her hair. And the hillside is drinking. The trees are bathing. The flowers are softening. And I, she added, smiling, get to have you here beside me, under my porch. Lila fell quiet, the frown slowly fading from her face. Marin pointed toward the distant fields, where rain landed gently on dry soil. Do you know why the farmers wish for rain around this time? Because the plants are about to bloom? Lila asked. No, Marin said. Because if rain came a week earlier, the soil wouldn't be ready. And if it came 2 weeks late, the crops would dry and fall. She turned to Lila. Rain arrives exactly when it needs to. Not early. Not late. Lila watched the rain. For the first time, she didn't see it as something that ruined her plans, but as something happening for its own quiet reason. Grandma, Lila said softly. Last week, Mom told me the reason I wasn't chosen for the dance group in the festival was because it wasn't my time yet. Is that like the rain, too? Marin's smile was tender. What do you think, dear? Lila looked at her hands. I think maybe I'm not as good as Ava. Maybe, the old woman said. Or maybe you just need a little more time to believe in yourself. She looked directly into the little girl's eyes, her voice soft, like rain falling on leaves. You know, she said slowly, I've watched many children grow up here. The ones chosen early aren't always the ones who go the farthest, and the ones not chosen yet are often the ones who bloom in exactly their season. Lila grew quiet. Those words landed in her heart like a raindrop touching a still lake. Marin set her knitting aside. Lila, she said gently, do you remember the lavender bush in your yard? Yes. It blooms so purple, Lila said quickly. Last year, it bloomed later than every other plant in the village. Everyone thought it was dead. But when it finally bloomed, it was the most beautiful of all. Lila's eyes widened. Really? Yes, Mara nodded. Because everything has its own rhythm. No one arrives late. No one arrives early. We all arrive exactly when we're meant to. The girl watched the rain. But this time, something new was forming quietly inside her. After a long while, the rain softened, then faded, as if it had just completed its quiet task. No rush, no apology, no lingering, just gone. Lila stood up and looked at her wet shoes. But this time, she didn't frown. Grandma, she said softly, I think maybe I'm also waiting for my right time. Old Marin stroked her hair. That's right. And when that moment comes, you'll bloom more beautifully than you imagine. Lila smiled. A small, warm smile, like the first hint of sunlight after rain. She stepped off the porch, her shoes sending little ripples across the puddles. Grandma, the rain is beautiful, isn't it? The old woman watched her, eyes gentle, like the sky just beginning to brighten. It's very beautiful, sweetheart, especially when you finally understand. It came at the right time. You can bring your attention back to your body just a little. Start with your shoulders, the place where you've carried so many things from the past. Let them fall one small degree. Then your jaw. On the tense days, it often holds the words you never managed to say. Now, let it soften just a little more. And finally, your chest. Let your breath move in and move out like slow water, leaving the shore. As your body loosens, the past becomes lighter too. You've walked with me through such gentle stories tonight. A leaf touching the ground, a seed leaving the hand, rains arriving at the perfect moment, fields blooming even after loss, and perhaps somewhere deep inside you, there is also something that has reached its time to go, not to leave you, but to leave the way. You've been holding it. Old stories are no longer things you must keep alone. They are seeds that have already finished their purpose. And when you open your hand, they can become something new. Sometimes we don't hurt because of what happened. We hurt because we believe we must carry it forever. But you don't have to hold anything. When your heart is tired, you have the right to let go. You have the right to soften. You have the right to let what has passed return to the place it naturally belongs. And you know something. Nothing in this life arrives too late or too early. Everything comes at the exact moment meant to teach you what you've finally grown enough to understand. Even the things that leave at the right time. Now you can breathe without carrying all of that with you. Your body is beginning to believe that it is finally allowed to rest. If you look into the night with eyes that are slowly softening, you'll see the sky has never truly lost anything. Stars disappear, only to appear somewhere else. Clouds dissolve, so they can return as tomorrow's rain. And you are the same. You belong to a movement far greater than the stories you've already lived. Let yourself drift into the night, like a seed carried by the wind. Like something that's past, returning gently to where it belongs. If you're still awake, I'm right here, sitting beside you, quiet and steady. And if your eyes are beginning to close, let sleep hold you. Slowly, kindly. You've gone far enough for today. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to let go. And if nights like this help your heart feel even a little brighter, you can only, if you want, subscribe or leave a small message. Sleep well. Sleep well.